Alright, I will show you how to replace the panel on this particular laptop. I bought this just a few weeks ago, and 9 days after having it, I dropped a flashlight from about this height. It hit the keyboard, it bounced, it hit the screen right about here, and the bottom half of the screen just went to a bunch of garbled lines. Couldn't see anything. I was pretty mad about it. Did some research about replacing the laptop screen and figured out it was easy enough I could do it. Found out where to order one, which I've linked in my information. And I went ahead and opened mine up. I'll show you how I did that in a minute. This is what it looked like when I pulled the panel out. This is a piece of foil against here, probably shielding it. This is the wire that connects to the laptop. I've just got it kind of sitting here stuck down to hold it in place. This is the panel itself, and you can't really tell unless you can see right about here. You can see where it broke, and the outer did not break, but it was inside, so I would caution all of you to be very careful. This was a non-touch screen, so I don't know if that means it's weaker or stronger, but it's also a bright finish as you can see the reflections on it. Now, anyway, so the panel actually is not glued, but taped into this shell. It's not in any sort of bracket, which makes it a little more difficult, I think, to repair. And I know it's a lot cheaper in the assembly line. There was tape that ran from here to here, a black type of tape, a rubberized type of tape that's sticky on both sides. It's kind of like those 3M command strips that you can put on the wall, hang things on it, and then you pull the tab underneath and it releases from the wall. It was kind of like that. And so the panel was sitting here, and you could see the tab of black tape plastic sticking out here. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to grab hold of that plastic and pull it down through the crack here between the top and the bottom, and just keep pulling it back and back and back, and it stretches a long way. In fact, I had to actually use a pair of long nose pliers and just roll it and twist it all up on the pliers in order to get it out. But eventually, as you pull it out, it will release and it will come out without having to move the panel at all. Do it on this side, and then the panel simply will pivot forward because it's not attached to anything. And you will see that this is stuck into the connector here after you peel back this top piece of tape, like that. Alright, so the thing about opening it up before you order the panel is the thing to do, because thankfully HP put a little label in here that talks about what spare part you should buy to make it fit your screen. Apparently it's important to have the correct resolution and the correct number of pins on the connector, and whether it's a touch or non-touch. Apparently the touch screen has a 40-pin connector on it, and this is a non-touch screen. And then there's two variations that are interchangeable. The touch and non-touch are not interchangeable, but you can either get the bright finish that has the glossy, some people like that, or you can get the matte finish, which I ordered a matte finish for the replacement part. So the panel basically is taped into the top shell. There is a bezel, which is thin plastic, and you can buy replacement one of these if you should happen to break it, but I got it out just fine. And it kind of snaps into place. Now on the bottom it hooks. You can see it has kind of teeth that kind of fit in there, so that's going to be a little bit tricky to get back in there when the time comes. And on the back of the panel there was tape all across here and a little bit across the top up here and down the sides to help hold it in place. So I'm hoping that when I put the new panel in, that I'm going to try, first of all, I saved one of the strips of the adhesive double-sided black tape that was in here originally. And I'm going to try to use a little bit of it, leaving a little to hang out the bottom on each side, and see if I can make that work. And then see if the bezel, when snapped back in place, will hold it in place. But the reason to leave it hanging out a little at the bottom is that should the new panel need to be replaced, if you just use regular double-sided sticky tape back here, you can't get to it to pull the panel off, and you would literally have to pry the panel out, which probably most definitely would break the panel. So if it's an old panel coming out, it may not be an issue, as long as you don't hurt yourself on any glass there might be, or if this is glass, it may just be plastic. But otherwise, if you're having to remove the panel for something, then you may ruin the panel. So that's why I want to try to reuse the tape that was in there. So right now I am going to pause because I'm waiting for my panel to be delivered by UPS. It's supposed to come today. I purchased the panel from the company that I put a link in the information block of this video, and we'll take it from there. All right. My new screen arrived, and it came inside a thin cardboard box and in 2 bubble wrappers. I'm going to use one to lay on my keyboard to kind of pad as I do this. This is the new screen. It's got a protective film on the front. And it has the connector that looks like it will line up just fine right here. So the first thing I want to do is plug this in to make sure the new screen works. So this may be a little tedious to watch, so I may have to edit this part out. I'm trying to avoid putting any downward pressure for obvious reasons, because that's how I broke my last one. I think I've got that plugged in there, and the best thing to do now before I do any reassembly is to turn on the computer, see if it'll work. Hold your breath, everybody. Looks good so far. Oh yeah. Wow. That may look better than the original one that came with it. Alright, so I'm going to try to turn off. And we're going to proceed with installing it. So I'm going to put my pad back in place, lay the screen down. I'm going to push just a little more to make sure this is in. Actually, I'm not, because this tape that was originally on there is holding it just fine. So I can see that that might be a reason that you'd have to take the panel off without the panel being broken, is if you got this loose. And therefore being able to remove the panel is kind of important. So to make sure, I'm going to peel back this tape one more time and give this just a little more snug. Make sure that it's fully seated. It pins in. I thought it pinned from the top, but it does pin from this back side. It just slides in there. It's very simple there. And then I'm going to give it a snug pull, and this is the original tape, putting it back on there. Then this is original too, off of the old one. I guess it's some sort of protector tape to keep it from shorting out if it should touch this aluminum backing here. So that's going on just fine. Alright, now for the biggest part is putting the adhesive on these sides right here. I told you I saved some of that original black double-sided. This is what it looks like, and it really stretches. So I tell you, I'm going to put this and I'm going to leave it to hang over so that it can be, try not to touch it too much, so it could be removed if necessary. And I'm going to put it out toward this edge and stretch it just a little bit. Kind of tap it down a little bit lightly. Don't want to put weight on that screen. So we want this tape to go into this this area here, not onto the foil, I would assume. So I had one little bit left that I salvaged from that where I had to cut it because it got all twisted, and once it gets twisted, it's double-sided, so you can't get it undone. And I'm going to put that over on this side. And tamp it down a little bit with my finger. Alright, now I'm going to do something. I'd mentioned the command strips, these sorts of things that you can get with the hooks on them. These are a little thicker than I realized when I bought them. They have a little bit of foam in there. So we're going to see how this works. This says this is the wall side. So I'm going to put that up here, letting the top part of it hang out a little bit. Hopefully this is going to prove out to be okay. But now we do have tabs, see, up here and down here for removing it without breaking the display if there should be any reason. I don't see anything else I need to do. I've got this tape in place. I've got the adhesive. I've got to take these backers, these little pieces off of this. And now to position this. Oh, the computer is still on. What is that? Oh, that's for removing the front protective film. Okay, so it kind of has little shoulders right down here that it looks like this display sits on. So I've got that in place. Line it up. See how touchy that screen is? I'm not going to put any more pressure on it than that. And there's those tabs. I'm just going to leave them there like that. Hopefully the bezel will snap over it. If it doesn't, then we'll come back and deal with it. And that's all. I'm not going to do any, mashing like this to make that tape stick. I'm just going to assume it's going to do its job. And now for putting the bezel on, I can remove this part. Bezel still has some adhesive. I'm going to hope that it's going to be enough to do the job without me having to add more to it. So I'm not quite sure how I got this out. It was a little tough to get it out. I had to do a little bending and popping. You hear it popping as it kind of goes in there. I better take this peel off the protective screen. I guess I should have done that before I started putting the bezel on. Look at that. Pretty, pretty, pretty. I'll put it on the old screen over here. This is obviously turning out to be the hardest part right here. There's a little nub right guess I should have watched a few more videos on reinstalling the bezel. I don't see any reason for it to not go down. There, it just, for some reason, just wiggled and went in. So I'm going to do my thumb across the bottom here. And then going up, keeping pressure on the outside edge, not on that screen. To the corners, up around the top. Wow. So is that it? There's a little something dragging there. That's amazing though. So, as frustrating as it was to break that stupid screen 9 days after buying it, it's nice to know that you can replace it. And it was really rather easy, and now I have a matte screen, which is great. So, good luck with you folks. I hope it all goes... Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, if you watched all of this video, which I'd be quite surprised if anybody did, but to get the bezel off, you start from under here, and you can basically use a fingernail and work its way up. And what I did is I pulled it a little and then took like a credit card corner and put it under there, and then pulled a little more and keep working the credit card in until it actually raised it up, and then you can start snapping it out. Just be careful about the camera right there, and the thin sides it can break too. So congratulations. Here we go.